If we start very broadly, then, our vision is to develop software or technology that makes the world a better sounding place. It's such a wonderful thing that we're working with sound that you can, not just look at graphs and numbers or color maps or whatever, but you can also just hear it and experience it. It's grueling work to build a startup. For every one thought of damn, it's going well, and we got this. It's gonna be. And then there are probably 300 thoughts of this isn't working. No.
Hi, Finnur. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you, Marc?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for joining the podcast and welcome. So, can I ask you a very simple question? Can you introduce yourself the way you would like to be introduced?
Sure. So, my name is Finnur Pind. I am the CEO and one of the founders of Treble Technologies, which is an audio software startup, which I'm sure we will get into the details of. That's me. Yeah,
and there's some announcements maybe to make at the time of the release of the episode. So Atelier Crescendo is going to be the UK ambassador of Treble, which is very good news, and I'm very happy. Thank you very much for suggesting this and offering this. It's a very special episode for me because we've known each other for 3 years, and we were just starting up our own companies. Obviously, they've taken different directions. They are very different companies, actually. But yeah, it's nice to see each other's going in their own ways, but succeeding as well. So I'm really happy to have an episode now. I never thought I'd have a podcast at the time, the first time we spoke.
Right.
So can you explain what Treble Technologies is, or the software is, and who is it for?
Absolutely. So if we start very broadly, then, our vision is to develop software or technology that makes the world a better sounding place, or build tools that help industries make the world a better sounding place. So our slogan is enabling a better sounding world. And, there are many good reasons why we want the world to sound even better. It's been shown that good acoustics lead to improved health and well-being and so on, and better ways to communicate and connect with one another. So that's kind of a very broad picture. And if we then sort of start narrowing it down a little bit, then indeed we're developing software, and the mission is to be ultimately the kind of go-to tool when it comes to simulating and designing something with respect to sound, both in the physical world. So if you're designing a building or a car or a tech product or something, and you want to be able to simulate that in the computer and design it in the computer, make sure that it sounds good and performs well and so on. Also in the virtual world, if you want to create a virtual listening experience and want to be able to have that be as authentic and realistic as possible, then this is sort of where Treble fits in.
And how did you, from the start, when did you think about creating it? I remember seeing you announcing your PhD defense. I don't know if that's the term in English. That's definitely the term in French.
Yeah.
You defend your PhD. So I remember seeing this, that you had worked on a wave-based simulation model. But yeah, is that when you thought you could create something, or is it even before, way before?
Yeah.
What's it after?
It goes quite far back, I would say. And I actually sort of quite distinctly remember the first moment when I thought that there was, room for improvement, or could be an idea to make better simulation tools for sound. This was back when I was doing my master's in acoustics engineering, and I think probably 2012. And I was very much into kind of studio acoustics and listening rooms and high fidelity. I was kind of a musician myself too, and so on, and had been recording music and so on. And I sort of realized, to my surprise, that there was really nothing on the market that allowed people to simulate the acoustics of a studio, like a smaller room, and be able to design that and optimize that in the computer. So I was kind of surprised about that. And then I was very fortunate to get to do a master project. This is 2013, where the idea was to kind of combine this wave-based modeling approach with geometrical acoustics. Maybe we'll dig more into the details of that in the podcast. And I sort of did a master project around this, and it went fine. We made some very initial prototypes, or I was kind of taking my first steps into developing simulation algorithms there. So these were kind of the very first steps. Then I finished my master's. I was working as an acoustic consultant in the building industry for a few years. And then I got this opportunity to go back to school, do a PhD, like you mentioned, where the goal was to kind of develop better sound simulation technology, maybe particularly thinking about building design, and kind of try to come up with technology that could become a product that would enable sound and acoustics to be better integrated into the building design process. And this was actually funded by an architecture firm called Henning Larsen. They had been struggling all the time with sound and acoustics in their design and in their process. They would design something that looks amazing and functions very well with in many respects, but then very late in the design process or even after the thing is built, they would figure out that there was a problem with the sound. So they wanted to see if there could be developed some technology to kind of help them think about sound as a part of building design.
So it's a product not only for acousticians, but for architects, potentially.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely. That was at least the thinking at the time. And this research work just went quite well. We ended up with, let's say, promising academic prototypes of new algorithms that were faster and more precise than what's been available. And then we founded Treble sort of out of that.
Great. And you've got co-founders as well.
Absolutely.
Let's not forget them.
Absolutely, yes. So it was me and my good friend Jesper Pedersen who we started this in the beginning. Jesper, we studied acoustics in this master studies many years ago. He went into more sort of the product development side of things. He was simulating hearing aids for many years, became a very deep specialist in simulation there. So kind of two acoustic simulation nerds who started this thing. And then sort of almost from day one, two other guys, Gunnar, who is more sort of on the commercial side, and Ingimar, who is more on the sort of software side of things. So that's sort of the founding team of Treble.
Great. And how big is the company now?
We have grown quite a bit. We were two guys in a...
I'm jumping here, but I'm sure we'll take some steps backward.
Absolutely. So we were two guys in a windowless basement here at the University of Iceland 3 years ago, and now we're a team of 32 people. So it's become quite a machine. Yeah. And
you're growing even bigger, it seems. But we'll mention it probably later for the end. You started to have that idea, and when did that get more concrete? And because it's well thinking of having a model, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who have had like MATLAB codes to do wave-based models. When did you think you could apply that technology, that algorithm, to make a software commercially available? And also we'll talk about the features later as well, but you're making it cloud-based, which is pretty unique for the type of software, especially acoustic software. So it's another question, but did you think about that from the start, or did that come gradually?
Yeah,
it's quite a few questions.
I mean, yeah, the kind of, the PhD research had very sort of a strong connection to let's say practice, or to an industrial connection throughout the whole thing. The whole idea was to develop something that would ultimately be used in practice. And then, when we started seeing promising results and even applying it on kind of projects, so the very first early prototypes, and seeing promising results, I remember moments, where architects at Henning Larsen or whatever were hearing a building they were designing and kind of in a different way than they had been able to do before. They could kind of see the building and hear it and move around and so on. And they were really inspired by this, and it kind of facilitated good discussions and helped push the design in the right direction, sound wise. So then I was very inspired to kind of take this further. But then, to be perfectly frank, there was kind of a moment towards the end of the PhD. Me and Jesper had been talking for some time about whether we should do something with this, and we applied for a grant. Like here, there's a innovation grant here in Iceland, like a small grant to get started with a startup. And
how much was it, if you don't mind me asking?
I need to convert. It was 20 million ISK, which is, give me a second, I want to say some not ridiculous numbers. Small grant. It was like enough grant for like half a salary a piece. I'm converting here. It's like 100,000 euros. So, it's definitely something, okay. But
it's decent.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we could sustain two guys for maybe 1 to 2 years with that. And it was very much a question of, if we get the grant, then we have to go for it. If we don't, then maybe we'll park this idea. And we got the grant, and then it was like, all right, I guess we're doing this.
So did you work, just the three of you, for a year, or you thought you'd recruit very quickly because you didn't have some knowledge, or you had all the knowledge you needed to kickstart it, make it cloud-based? How did that happen? How did that evolve?
Yeah.
Because it seems like you haven't waited a year to have more staff and involve more people in the development. I remember, I don't know exactly when things happened, but I remember that things were going quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, kind of as soon as Gunnar came on board, who's the commercial guy, he kind of changed our attitudes a little bit. So me, Jesper, and Ingemar were kind of engineers, thinking about the tech and so on. And then Gunnar comes in and he's like, guys, you have this very promising technology. It's kind of pretty clear that it can do things that weren't possible before. There's quite a lot of people out there probably who would find this useful. Like, let's really go for this. Let's get funding and let's give it our absolutely best to kind of take this as far as possible. And I was like, oh yeah, you can do that. Oh, I didn't really think about that. And then we we were probably the four of us for 6 months, something like that. And then we sort of started to kind of explore this idea of getting funding, or, getting kind of investors to back this venture. And we learned that there was some appetite for that. So we could, give this the best possible shot of building like a great platform.
Did you apply for more funding straight away, or did you wait to? When did you? Yeah, I presume there was a point where you set a benchmark and say, at this point we want to make it more open for more funding, and this capability will convince investors to invest in Treble. So did you have that? And when did you start having that?
Yeah, it's always a balancing act, I guess, when it comes to funding. You want to get as far as possible to kind of make the case as attractive as possible, or it's a chicken and an egg situation, but you also need the funding to make the thing as great as possible. So, when we felt, I guess kind of traction trumps everything when it comes to funding startups. So when we felt we had enough traction to prove that there was something here, we had done some pilot projects, or there was showing that people were interested in using this and so on, then we sort of went out and approached investors.
Did you have any major contributors? You talked about being Henning Larsen, doing that PhD. Who from Henning Larsen's or somewhere else was like a strong contributor pushing for the project and encouraging you during and after the PhD?
That's probably been the best part of this whole journey is all the fantastic people that we have and I have gotten the chance to work with. So indeed, during the kind of these early research days, it was the sort of scientific team around me that was absolutely fantastic. That was, professors Allan and Kjell Ho from DTU. I had Professor Jan Hesteven from EPFL also supporting a lot, and Jakob from Henning Larsen. Then once we turned into a company, then like our board has been extremely helpful, very kind of experienced professionals there who have been able to guide us a lot and give us a lot of feedback and so on. All of our customers and collaborators are also, we're really we talk a lot with them and get their input and feedback and try ultimately, to build what they want. So they've been absolutely instrumental, and, from kind of different segments and industries. And then just the Treble team, which is just sitting right up here, there's like a brilliant person in every position, and I'm just very happy to work with them every day.
I was wondering, it's not in the questions I planned for you, but how did you get this? Like, it's like a managerial and business model that you've got, and you're replicating it quite well for in involving your community, involving your customers and the clients, having ambassadors models, which is a model that works quite well. It has worked for a lot of businesses. How did you get that? Is it all from Gunnar or from somebody else, or you discovered that you got advice from a business consultant or something like this, or it's just instinctive and from experience?
Good question. I think, especially when we were starting out, we were reading all these startup books and kind of business books and so on. And there's, for example, one very well established book, which is called The Lean Startup, which is all about this concept of sort of integrating the voice of the customer into the product development cycles and doing product development in an iterative fashion where you sort of push out things and test it in the market, as opposed to, being locked in the basement for 3 years and just thinking you're building the best thing in the world, and then you come out and then figure out you kind of had it all wrong. So that was very inspirational for us. And then we also just really love working with people. I'm much of a people guy myself, so it's very fun to kind of talk with people, and it's really kind of engaging discussions, even if it's just customer support. It's actually one of the most fun parts of the job, is just to kind of dive into the problems of our customers and try to figure out what they're facing and how technology can make their work better.
And is the whole team based in Iceland, in Reykjavik, or it's scattered?
Yes, so we are actually all under the same roof here in Reykjavik, but it's a quite diverse team. I think around 40% of the staff is not from Iceland, so we've been very fortunate to get some people to kind of come and relocate here. And we felt, at least here in the early days, that it was beneficial to be all in the same room. There's so much brainstorming and ping-ponging ideas and so on. Maybe in the future this will change, I don't know, but it's been working well so far.
Yeah, because you'd think for such a company that's very, very specialist, it's really hard to get everybody under the same roof. So there's obviously, after COVID, there's a lot of businesses that started to work more remotely. And actually, we with Akuwood, we do work very much remotely. So yeah, I mean, maybe at some point you'll have to do that. But I guess it's probably a nice life to have in Iceland as well.
Absolutely. But I mean, you're absolutely right. There's many examples of more kind of spread out teams that have worked really well. So both options can clearly work.
So let's talk about the technology a little bit more. First of all, can you explain what a wave-based model is? And what's the difference with purely geometrical based?
We're talking about simulation here, and simulation of sound, which is this idea of having a 3D model of some environment or something. It can be an environment of a space or or a car, or even like a model of a tech product, and you're sort of more modeling the inner workings of the product. But let's just think about a space like an open plan office or whatever, and then you want to, you have a 3D model of the geometry, you put in some sound source which emits sound, and then you kind of simulate how that sound bounces around the room and reaches some listener position. And you can then use the simulation to design the space or optimize the speaker or whatever. And typically people divide the simulation algorithms or methods into two categories, one which is called geometrical acoustics and one which is called wave-based methods. There's some people who can argue about whether these are the right names or not, but whatever. Let's just stick with them. And in geometrical acoustics, fundamentally, it is an approximate approach where we approximate the sound wave as a ray that sort of bounces around the room, kind of following straight lines, similar to kind of laws of optics. And this implies that this is a high frequency approximation. It's an approximation that works quite well when we have a very short wavelength. So a high frequency approximation. But when you come to lower frequencies, when you have longer wavelengths, then acoustic phenomena or wave phenomena like diffraction and interference and phase and so on starts to play a much bigger role. And these effects can be hard to model in geometrical acoustics. And then but the main benefit of geometrical acoustics, are great for many things, is the speed. It tends to be computationally efficient to do geometrical acoustics. Wave-based methods, on the other hand, there we don't approximate the sound wave as a ray. We instead really kind of solve the mathematical equations, the differential equations that describe wave motion on the computer. So these are inherently very precise methods. You capture inherently these phenomena like diffraction and interference and phase and so on. So this is a more precise approach, but the drawback of wave-based has been that it's much more computationally heavy, especially when you want to extend to big spaces and large or high frequencies, so large simulation problems. And then one of the main research breakthroughs behind Treble is to develop a wave-based algorithm that was much more efficient than what had been previously possible. That was brought about through both kind of advances in mathematics and numerical methods and so on, and then also in kind of utilizing powerful computing hardware. So those two things together, which meant that now it is possible to do wave-based modeling in a much more practical way than it's been possible before. It hadn't really found its way to kind of use in practice because it's always been so heavy, but with Treble it's very practical to do wave-based modeling.
And can you do that model based on the wave-based model at high frequencies, or there's a cutoff frequency where you just switch completely to geometrical? I presume you've got the opportunity to do it. You can change it depending on how long you want the calcs to last and how detailed.
Exactly. So in the Treble, in the Treble platform, we offer both approaches, and you can sort of choose whether to only use one or the other, or mix the two of them together. It's kind of makes sense to mix them together because geometrical acoustics are quite good at high frequencies, and wave-based kind of becomes heavier and heavier as you go up in frequency, and the most wave phenomena happens in the lower mid-frequency range. So it's a natural idea to kind of combine the two. And then, in sort of smaller rooms, it's definitely feasible to do wave-based only for the full spectrum. If you're doing a concert hall, then it's still kind of out of reach to do full bandwidth wave-based simulation, and then you would mix the two together.
And then you've added that cloud functionality. What are the benefits of using the cloud and not a computer?
Yeah,
like to do that. I presume I know there's a lot of questions I'm going to ask you that I know the answers, but it's nice to have your answers and have your version of everything. But yeah. So can you explain the advantage of a cloud-based system?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of from day one, we decided to have the Treble platform web-based and cloud-based, and that brings about sort of a lot of flexibility, scalability, and kind of more better opportunities also to collaborate. And these are kind of some terms. Maybe I can be a bit more concrete. So scalability, especially, you can spin up, hundreds or even thousands of machines to run simulations in parallel and in the cloud. So if you either want to run a lot of simulations or you have very big simulations that you want to split on different kind of cloud computers, then the cloud enables this. So it ultimately kind of improves the workflow and makes you be able to work faster and do iterations faster and so on. Flexibility, you can run it from any device. You don't have to have a powerful computer. You can access it from anywhere. You can, ship off 10 simulations, turn off your computer, and they will just continue running in the cloud and so on. And then right, and then the collaborative aspect, that you can have shared projects with your colleagues and so on. You can both be working on the same project. You can even share results with external collaborators and things like that as well. So it's
great. There's quite a few things that spring to mind, mate. Is it on your website? I can't remember if it was in one of the podcasts I listened to with you. Do you declare that it's 100 times faster than 1,000 times faster? Is that right?
Yeah.
Than what was the state of the art or before Treble?
Right. So indeed, at one point we were saying up to 1,000 times faster, and then we decided to say rather more than 100 times faster, because it is somewhere in that range in those benchmarks that we have done. So there we were comparing, or it was actually a study done at DTU, which we are citing, where they were comparing running simulations in Treble, wave-based simulations. So we're referring to the speed of the wave-based algorithm here, compared to running it on an existing finite element simulation tool, one of the industry standard tools. And then, it's always it's nuanced when you're comparing the speed and performance of two different algorithms or software. But what they did there was that they ran them on computing hardware, that cloud hardware that kind of costs the same per hour or something like that. And then they ran the exact same simulation problem in those two different software on the kind of same cost hardware. But one of the differences is that Treble the algorithm is kind of suited to run on GPUs, whereas existing software is mostly on CPUs. And then they found that the speed up was ranging from 100 to 1,000 times faster compared to this industry standard tool.
Great. That's pretty fast.
Yeah. That's good.
And yeah, something that we will mention more, but there's one thing that really appealed to me as a small company is the fact that you have a monthly subscription, which doesn't really exist currently. You have to pay for full software, and that's it. Where there's a lot of SaaS models that exist for a lot of applications, but it didn't exist for acoustics. And it's great that this exists for small companies, because we don't have a model or a big room to do every month. So we can turn off the subscription when we've got empty months, and we can turn it back on when we've got full months. So I guess this is really, really powerful and convincing as well. Well, let's talk about it later, because I've got more financial questions to ask you.
Right.
So in terms of other technological features, obviously on your website, there's a roadmap that announces some broad dates or periods of different release of different features. So one that is really just make a big change as well is that you've got the live link connection with SketchUp, where SketchUp is an architectural modeling software, and we usually use it to model our rooms, then export the models, have external files, and then import the files into the acoustic software. But with Treble, you can update your model and directly upload it to Treble, which is really powerful, I find. Is that something that you thought from the start? Or it just came at some point as an add-on?
Yeah, no, I would say from day one, at least, we've had this kind of mission of really emphasizing trying to improve the workflow of doing acoustics design and acoustic simulations. And I felt it very much myself, as I told you earlier, I was working as an acoustic consultant for a few years, and I felt that, quite a lot of time was wasted on manual, mundane tasks such as exporting files and importing them again and so on. So this is part of kind of one of the main things we emphasize with the Treble platform. If I give you the sales pitch, we usually kind of hammer on three things. First one being better accuracy, which we've kind of talked about. New simulation tech, which gives you more precise results, which in turn kind of improves your confidence in the design and reduces over design and things like that. Then the second aspect is better workflow and, kind of trying, as I was just saying, trying to make it more efficient to do acoustics design work. And we started with SketchUp, at least for the simulation suite, because that's a widely used tool in the industry. And we will soon be rolling out kind of similar live link plugins to other tools. And then the third aspect,
Rhino and Revit.
Exactly. And then the third aspect of the sales pitch has to do with the listening experience, trying to make that more interactive and fun and so on.
Well, good one, because it's the next one on my list.
Okay.
Features.
Yeah.
Can you describe what's the oralization capability? Obviously, oralization is your ability to listen to the inside the room or inside the model.
Yeah.
With a certain source. But yeah, I'll let you develop more.
Right. So exactly, it's such a wonderful thing that we're working with sound, that you can, not just look at graphs and numbers or color maps or whatever, but you can also just hear it and experience it. And oralization is a concept that's been around for many, many years, but we're sort of trying to take them to the next level by making them more immersive. So you can both see the model and hear it at the same time. You can move around. As of now, what you can do is kind of jump between predefined positions that you define. You can move the head in real time. We'll, in the coming months, be launching capabilities where you can more seamlessly walk around the model. So kind of more immersive, also connection to VR if you want, so you can feel more immersed into the space. More interactive, you can compare different designs on the fly, and just more also kind of seamless to set them up. You don't need to go through a big process of setting up an oralization. It's just more or less just kind of one click, and then you can listen to the simulation or do the oralization. So just kind of trying to bring this all one step further.
And on the roadmap, it says, at the end of the roadmap, it says that the oralization will be 60 degrees of freedom resolution, which for the audio geeks will understand that. It's going to be pretty powerful, and we're already chatting about collaborations of research to do, and I can see that being very appealing to advance some specific designs to when you want to design a space and you want to have some, especially concert halls, and you want to have some very precise resolution of where the sound or where from the sounds reaches you. I think it's pretty powerful. What's the current resolution the oralization's got at the moment?
Yeah, so what we do now is what would be called 3 degree of freedom oralization, meaning that you can be in a specific point in space, but you can move the head. So those are the kind of head rotation. Those are the 3 degrees of freedom you can move or modify in real time. But 6 degrees of freedom, which you mentioned earlier, it's this idea of being able to move the head, but also being able to kind of move around in the space. And we've actually had a prototype of this for a very long time, and it's kind of easy to do this in a simple way, but to do it well is a challenging problem, because ultimately what you would need is to kind of simulate the acoustics in real time, because you need to be able to move to any position possible, and simulating acoustics and rendering it to audio, whether it's binaural or some loudspeaker array or something. It's a lot of compute that you need to do that accurately. So we are and have been doing kind of very promising and exciting research into developing methods to be able to do this kind of in real time, to get the acoustics of the space and render it for listening.
By the way, is there any? I haven't seen that yet. Any papers or actual technical proof of all those statements? Can you support these? As in the speed research you did, is it widely available? Can anybody check it, review the methodology?
Yes, absolutely. And we've very understandably, people want to be sure that what they're getting is valid, and it's an engineering tool. So it absolutely. So we have spent quite a lot of effort into carrying out validation studies, either ourselves or in collaboration with academia and so on, and are collecting this on our website. So if you go to our website, there's a sub-page or whatever, which is called validation studies or validation cases, where you can see a bunch of results, and we are constantly kind of doing more and more of these. Absolutely.
Okay. I didn't see that. Great. And you've recently released the Treble SDK.
Indeed.
Again, can you explain?
Yeah, absolutely.
What this is?
Yeah. So what we've been talking about up until now is maybe more on this, what we call the simulation suite. So the Treble platform as a whole consists of two products, the simulation suite and then this SDK. And then sort of in the center is our simulation engine. So these two products are essentially two different interfaces to the same simulation engine, which sits in the cloud, and we've covered quite well. The simulation suite, which we've been talking about more, is tailored, for example, towards building design, and it's more like a acoustic design software, where you have a model and you're improving the acoustics of the room in the model. And down the road, we will expand the simulation suite, for example, to more kind of pro audio applications. We've actually started to roll out features on this, where you can be optimizing a sound system in a room. And ultimately, we will incorporate features to model automotive acoustics and maybe make a simpler version as well, which is more tailored towards architects and so on, as we talked about. That's the one leg of the platform. The other leg, the SDK, is not a graphic user interface like the simulation suite, but it's a programmatic interface. So it allows you to kind of integrate our simulation engine into really anything. You can integrate it into your own sort of custom R&D workflows. You can couple it with your own 3D modeling tool or scripts like Rhino Grasshopper, for example. You can integrate it into a gaming engine like Unity or Unreal. Really, and there's the kind of sky's the limit with an SDK. You can do whatever you can think of. And the use cases and the sort of target audience we're mostly thinking about here is more sort of in, let's say, tech applications. So one very prominent example, which is perhaps the main use case we are tailoring, at least here in the beginning, has to do with synthetic data generation. And if I explain briefly what that is.
Go on, yeah. Clarify.
Yes. So almost all modern audio equipment, whether that's hearing aids or speakerphones or large sound systems or AR glasses or sound bars or whatever, they're all being filled with audio machine learning algorithms, some kind of algorithm that works in real time to improve the audio quality in some way. Hearing aid, to try to separate speech from background noise. Sound bar, maybe kind of automatic room compensation where it adapts to the environment it's placed in, and so on. All kinds of algorithms, but all of them have kind of the same challenge that they need to be trained, because it's machine learning based. They need to be trained. They need to see a million different acoustic scenarios so that they can perform in any scenario you put it in. And up until now, people have been needing to kind of do this data collection using measurements, which is, very time consuming and expensive, and you get kind of small data sets out of that. But now we come with a platform that both has very precise simulation technology and is very scalable. You can run it in the cloud, and you can, script how you set up set up 10,000 restaurants with these kinds of sources and receivers, blah, 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 ship it all to the cloud and get back this kind of data set to then train an audio machine learning algorithm. So that's an example of a use case for an SDK.
So you can see all this optimizing sound absorbers. Anything with machine learning to train models, run 100 models to know exactly the sound absorption of a material to achieve a certain criteria. Or you can do it with diffusers as well, which is, I think, going to be even more powerful and massive game changer. Mm-hmm. That's my view. Mm-hmm. It's crazy everything that you've thought of and you're including, and it's crazy also that it's never been done before. But a lot of other softwares do it, big softwares, not just acoustics. But it's only now that there's a company starting to do it for acoustics. Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm. Hats off to you all, guys.
Thank you, Marc. Just like, a lot of it comes out of discussions with brilliant people all over the world. We didn't think of all these things ourselves. We talked to people and heard their challenges and what they would like, and then we sort of tried to build it like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope we're going to be able to test those functionalities soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
With different research projects together. So in terms of, I also note that there's a library of sources and their directionality. There's, it's quite good and very useful, especially for loudspeakers. Are you going to extend it as well to other types of sources like instruments and people talking?
Yeah. Yes. So this is one of the major initiatives is to kind of improve sound source modeling capabilities, so that you can be optimizing sound systems in rooms, ranging from a small meeting room with a speakerphone all the way over to Madison Square Garden with a huge sound system and everything in between, and it's a very exciting field. We are also in good collaboration with many of the loudspeaker manufacturers and so on to get kind of precise data to describe them and or characterize them. So it's a very exciting journey.
Are you running a measurement campaign at all, or are you getting data from other parties? How is that organized?
Yeah, we're getting data from the manufacturers. Basically, they tend to have very precise data of their equipment, which we then integrate into the platform.
Cool. Sound field animation. Obviously, we're going to be able to see soon how sound propagates through a room or an environment, which is great. It's. I would say I want to say it's pretty standard, but maybe there's another amazing feature that hides behind this.
Yeah, exactly. It's, one of the benefits of doing a wave-based approach is that you then really sort of see how sound behaves in the room. And I think, at least in certain scenarios, that can provide additional insights for the designer. If you're getting maybe results which are surprising or something, then you can see exactly what's happening, and there's this focusing effect or whatever, yeah. That's cool.
I think it will be quite good. And you can also share, or you will be able to share organizations with others as well, which is quite powerful for consultants, I can see, or any other. If you want to do some sound design or soundscape, design is going to be pretty good if you want to share it either during a meeting or remotely to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. That's something we're launching just a couple of weeks from now, basically. That's going to be very cool.
I mean, I was going to ask you, what do you better than your competitors? Do you know the benchmark, and do you know where you are and what you need to improve still? Or maybe you can pass that question. You've got the choice.
I think at least I would like to say about competition or other products and tools that are out there that we have tremendous respect for other tools and companies that are working in same or similar field as us, and those that come before us, and I happen to know some of them even personally, and they're really just very wonderful and nice people. So it's all kind of, the audio world is very friendly, and we're all just trying to make the world a better sounding place. And we try to focus on us and just kind of, like we've been talking about, building new features and making the best possible tool out there for our users.
I have to say, the way of doing business in the countries is very fair and very respectful. There's not just you, but other people I work with, and it's incredible. It's just really nice to work in those environments, because even if you're competitors, it doesn't mean you're enemies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, there is business involved and there is money involved, but you do have a lot of respect for your competitors, because actually they're those ones who've created a benchmark, and also you probably have learned a lot from them before you even created your own company. And
absolutely.
It's the case for me, and I guess I want to say it's more of a modern way of thinking, but I know also a lot of other companies who want to just break the game and just kill everybody, which is very aggressive. But yeah, I don't know if you've got anything to add to this.
No. I mean, it's just I agree. It's the modern way. Yeah.
You've won some awards, haven't you? As a company, not personally. Can you list them?
Yeah. We've
I can't remember the names.
Yeah. We've actually been fortunate to win quite a few. So let me think. We won back in 2021 when we were sort of introducing the concept of Treble and so on. Then we won what's called the Smart Building, Smart Construction Innovation World Cup. It was at a big building industry conference called BIM World. We were very proud of that. This notion of integrating acoustic simulations into the BIM workflow, which we are still working on, but that was awarded. We won a pitch competition at this startup conference called Slush, which is a very big startup event at least in Northern Europe, and we were really proud of that. So first there was it was a competition between the Nordic or new Nordic countries. So first we won a semi-final competition here in Iceland, and then we sort of represented Iceland in the competition and ended up winning. So that was fantastic. This summer we were at the conference, very big conference in the sort of signal processing world called IKSSP, which is sort of the biggest event in the signal processing world. And there was also a startup day or event there, which we participated in and ended up winning that as well, which was fantastic. Last week, we were shortlisted by the Financial Times of being tech champions of 2023. We did not win, but we were still proud of being shortlisted. So that was quite amazing. So yeah, there's been a few, which has been very motivating for us.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be more opportunities for that with Financial Times maybe next year.
Yeah,
once you have released all those features.
Absolutely.
So, how much have you been able to raise so far? Let's dive into finances.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been an important part of our journey for sure. So we have done 2 fundraising rounds, and the total sum we collected there was around maybe 7 million euros, close to that amount. And then we've also gotten grants of maybe which total in around 3 million euros. Biggest by far was this EIC Accelerator grant, which is a European Union grant, which was 2.5 million. So yeah, that's kind of been obviously instrumental in helping us build out this platform.
Yeah, I'm asking all those questions because a lot of questions or discussions that are around softwares, and I remember having that discussion was, a company could crash suddenly for financial reasons, or not financial, but mostly financial reasons, and especially consultants, big firms don't want to have to just do all their modeling with a software, and suddenly they can't use it because it's not usable. So I think it's important for me, and I guess for people who listen to that podcast to have that answer as well.
Yeah.
But I know you're very open to discuss it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're already on a very promising path in terms of revenues and so on. So I myself have at least become quite confident that Treble will work and will stay afloat. We'll have to see how big we can make the company and so on. But yeah, there's been very kind of promising traction already. So things are looking good.
One question that I should have probably asked at the start, but did you need money to start the software, or you could have the grant you got accelerated it massively? But do you think you would have still been able to progress at a good pace without any funding?
Basically, no. I think, if we would have tried something, but, building out new technology, completely new approach, doing it well and kind of getting it out to the world, it's a massive endeavor and requires resources. So the only way I see to kind of really do this well and ultimately, I don't know if I use the word revolutionize, or at least sort of really introduce a next level of tools or processes, services, products that requires resources, and I think it's the way to go, that you invest and then you reap the rewards later.
Great. Yeah, because there's a lot of companies you can bootstrap,
Absolutely,
accelerate the development.
Absolutely,
you can develop with your own money.
Absolutely,
and it works. And I guess consultants are a bit more like this.
Yeah, absolutely, nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely.
There's for startups, there's a lot of ideas that you have to raise money, but you don't need to, and it's even harder. And there's a lot more respect for tech companies who develop with their own money at their own time, obviously. But it just depends on the model and what you want to do and how quickly you want to go.
Yeah, and there are different types of investors and investments also. Like different models within that world of getting an investment. So there's many different approaches. No right or wrong. It's just different models for different ventures, basically.
How easy was it to raise investment? Obviously, the first one you weren't expected. That's how I perceive it, but maybe I'm wrong. And then after that, did you have to go pretty hard on pitching your idea to 100 people and you only had one investing, or how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, it's been tremendous amount of work for sure. For at least 2 or 3 of us, maybe 4 of us in the company, it's been a good percentage of what we do is fundraising and relations with investors and so on. So yeah, it's been a lot of work. It has gone well, ultimately so far. But yeah, takes a lot of work. But we've been very fortunate to work with fantastic investors. I had not worked with investors before. I was just a acoustics nerd before starting Treble. But have been very pleasantly surprised, or not surprised, just pleasantly discovered that investors, at least the ones we've been working with, they're just people who are really enthusiastic about new technology and innovation and supporting new businesses and contributing to the world. So it's been fantastic collaboration.
I'll insist on this on that question, because there's a lot of perception that it's really easy to get a startup up and running or get a business up and running. And you say a lot of work, and yes, I agree, there's a lot of work. But to get your first clients or first investors, you probably need to see hundreds or even more to speak to them, and you get so much rejection because nobody believes in your idea. Or for consultants, everybody already knows an acoustic consultant. So you've got to go and see, I'd say even 200 people, and there's probably 1% of people who will reply to you, and 0.5 or less than this, maybe 10% of those 1% who will just be open to introduce you, not just give you a project. So, it's really hard, and I don't want to take that lightly. And I know, and I presume that it's been the same for you. So yeah, can you describe a bit more your process of getting investment, where you went, how your pace, the pace at which you were going to?
Yes. Maybe first a general comment to what you're saying is I completely agree, and it's grueling work to build a startup, and like you say, many no's that you get along the way, which can be discouraging in the moment, but also helpful. And I think what's his name, Reid Hoffman, one of these kind of startup legends from Silicon Valley, who wrote a book called Masters of Scale, which is the sort of the central theme of the book, or at least one of the themes, is to kind of use the no's. You get the no's, and they are super important because they help you hone your vision, they help you improve, and they're just an absolutely crucial part of the journey. So you shouldn't feel too discouraged about the no's that you get along the way. They're necessary. Likewise, when we face technological challenges, like this isn't working, then I've started to view that positively now, because that means that we can innovate and do something new and solve a problem that's not been solved before. So it's actually good to find challenges and hiccups, because that means we can, kind of develop a further competitive edge compared to what's been out there before. So, completely agree with this. And, I would say for me personally, for every one thought of like, damn, it's going well, and we got this. It's gonna be. And then there are probably 300 thoughts of like, this is not going well enough, or oh my god, this customer is unhappy, or oh my god, this time plan didn't work out, or So it's just it's intense. And then to answer your question specifically about the funding, in the first round, we were just trying everyone, maybe more sort of locally here in Iceland, but still also trying abroad. Had a lot of discussions, which, and ended up people not investing, but as I was kind of alluding to earlier, they were still very helpful discussions. People were giving us good feedback and so on, and that was crucial along the way until we ultimately found someone who was interested in investing, and this first round was more or less led by two sort of entities that invested in Treble and have been very helpful. And then likewise in the second round, lots of pitching, and some people get it, others don't. Some people get it but still don't want to invest. Maybe it doesn't fit their field or their types of investment. They prefer investing in other types of businesses or whatever. It's totally fine, so you can't please everyone, and that's how it should be. And then you just kind of hack at it until you have something.
Yeah. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, right. I think someone said, the main difference between a successful entrepreneur and a not successful entrepreneur, I'm paraphrasing, but it's just like this persistence, you kind of just don't give up.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you have to be very crazy, like just contact so many people and just keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not funny when it happens to you, and when you get those refusals. But thinking again about it, it's like, oh, it's so funny. I'm glad that we went through. Oh, we got through.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had your journey as well, with lots of ups and downs and challenges along the way.
Oh yeah. The first year was really hard. But then from the end of the first year, I knew it was gonna work out.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it took a while. It was during the COVID, so lockdown, and everything had to be remote. So we had to think differently, and that's probably all the online marketing that you did as well. Paid massively, and if COVID hadn't been there, I would have never thought about doing a blog or even a podcast.
Right.
So yeah. But, and I guess that's our strengths now.
Right. Yeah, it's something you've done really well, Marc. To get yourself out there and just to get the acoustics out there as well. So I appreciate that.
Cheers. I take the compliment. I was going to ask you to do a sales pitch. What sort of sales pitch do you usually do? Because I guess you've more than rehearsed. So, what do you say when you approach a potential investor? Say I'm an investor. What do you?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's about convincing them it's a good business case to invest in Treble. Of course, people care about other things too, like having a positive impact and so on. And we argue that, certainly a better sounding world is positive for everyone. And that's a nice thing. But at the end of the day, it has to make sense from a business perspective, which means that people have to, earn on their investment and get their money back and something more. So you need to do everything you can to illustrate that that's the case. Of course, people realize that investing in a startup is a risky thing, and you don't allocate your grandmother's life savings for startup investments. It's more other types of investments, and the typical venture capital thesis is that you invest in 10 companies, 7 fail, 2 kind of become okay businesses, and then 1 really becomes big and makes the money back for all of the others. And at least sort of the American Silicon Valley model. Maybe in Europe it's a bit more down to earth, but still, yeah.
People say it's about the people behind the companies and not just the idea, because you could have an average idea, but if you've got people to drive that idea, you can really succeed. And that's why you've got serial entrepreneurs, because they know the tricks and they know how to do it. Or they can still fail though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the idea is only a part of the puzzle, a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, so it must be thanks to you as well. The whole management team. So we're gonna wrap up. But before, I wanted to ask about the pricing. I've got them in front of me, but there's 3 or 4 different grades.
Right.
Go on, I'll let you do it.
So for the simulation suite, which is the product that's been on the market for a longer time, it's fundamentally 2 models. One model is what we call the flexible model, which is tailored more towards sort of smaller businesses and maybe people who are not using it all the time. It's cheaper, but then you also pay a bit for usage. So if there's a month where you use it a lot, then maybe you would pay a bit more, but otherwise you'd pay a bit less. The other model is what we call the unlimited model. Then you pay a bit higher sum per month, but then you can just use it as much as you want and don't have to think about anything. It's really just these 2 approaches. We're trying to make a pricing approach which tailors different user types and different needs of different companies. We have a third one, which is called enterprise, which is if you're just a bigger team, let's say 3, 4, 5 people and up, then we make some sort of custom agreement for you. But yeah, that's basically it. The SDK is, we're still kind of rolling that out in a controlled way. We want to ensure that the first users have a good experience and so on. So we basically have a waiting list for people to sign up on. There's been a lot of interest in the product, so we had to go that way. And there is a bit different model where it's more this kind of compute token usage-based system.
Shall I give some numbers?
Go for it.
Yeah, it's on the website anyway.
Yeah.
So for the early bird, it's 99 euros per month. Flexible is 99 euros per month. But the early bird is for 3 months only.
Yeah.
And for unlimited, it's 299 per month.
Exactly.
So unlimited hours. Great. And what are your, obviously, the mid-term goals? I presume we've listed them with the roadmap. Have you got any other mid-term goals? Getting more funding or?
Yes, we will be doing another fundraising round now in the spring to kind of, we typically say to scale up and scale out, in the sense of scaling up, selling more of what we've already put out to the world. Scale out in the sense of expanding the capabilities of the platform to be able to address more use cases, a larger market essentially. And that's sort of the overall vision. And more specifically, we already touched upon this, but in the simulation suite, we want to expand more into pro audio, automotive, and also into architecture or user types, as well as just continuing to make it an absolutely great product for the initial target market, which is more sort of acoustic consultants. And on the SDK side, in the beginning, we've been focusing on this synthetic data generation, but virtual prototyping of audio devices, integration into more tools, and ultimately this kind of real-time simulation engine for gaming and metaverse and those kinds of applications. That's medium to long-term goals here.
Something we forgot to mention to discuss is, obviously, you said the main market is the acoustic consultants, but obviously architects will be able to use it. Can you explain briefly how and why and how?
Yeah, this is still somewhat in the ideation phase, but the thinking here is that we want to develop a sort of simplified version of the simulation suite, which could be used by people who are not experts in acoustics, to sort of, maybe let's say especially in the early design phases, to sort of set the design off on the right foot. So you can get a rough estimate of the acoustics, and you can, because so many decisions are made in the very early design stages, and being able to sort of have some informed decision-making process facilitated by the software. And then a very key component is kind of a very seamless integration into the 3D modeling CAD BIM tools that people are using. So it's kind of a one-click thing that you're designing in Rhino or Revit or whatever, and you can just very quickly get a rough gauging of the acoustic quality of what you've designed.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And definitely not thinking to try to cut acoustic experts out of the mix. They will always be needed.
Obviously not.
Yeah, but it's more to just kind of support the whole process and support collaboration between the two groups.
Yeah. I mean, it could go hand in hand, and it could help architects understand different phenomena, and it's about educating everybody as well. How about the long-term goals? I mean, what you said there is, I asked about mid-term, but I presume long-term as well.
Yeah, maybe I answered.
Like in 5 years' time, maybe? Do you have any goals in 5 years, 10 years' time?
Yeah, I guess I sort of went a bit long-term there and went in the mid-term answer. But coming back to kind of the very first question of the interview, the sort of mission of the company is to ultimately be the go-to software when it comes to designing anything with respect to sound, both in the physical and the virtual world.
Any exciting collaborations coming up, apart from the one with Atelier Crescendo?
Yeah, that's a very exciting one.
Yeah.
I mean, we have many ongoing projects, ranging from smaller consultancies all the way up to the biggest tech companies in the world, and everything in between. And and also with academia, we have lots of interesting research going on where they're exploring how this simulation tech can be used and so on. So that's very exciting. We have a webinar in December where we will be launching these kind of collaborative features, sharing organizations, working with colleagues across borders or teams or whatever. In the very beginning of the new year, we will be introducing the version 1 of a connection to BIM, linking Treble with BIM modeling tools, which is exciting. And then there's just like an endless list of things that are coming.
Great. Well, it's very exciting, and I look forward to doing more work with Treble.
Yeah, likewise.
As the software or with you guys. Thank you very much. It was very interesting, and I'm sure we'll speak very soon again.
Thank you, Marc, for having me. It was great.